Questions 26 through 29. Listen to part of a radio broadcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the David Mason Hour. I'm your host, David Mason, and we're live on KSTR Radio. Tonight, our first guest isn't from this country. Instead, he's from across the Atlantic Ocean. His name is Ian Abernathy, and he's an exchange student from Scotland. Good evening, Ian.
Good evening to you, Mr. Mason.
Ian, you've been here for the past 3 months, and during that time, you've made quite an impression on your fellow students. In fact, one of the things you've done is that you started a rugby club at your school. Now, I don't know much about rugby. In fact, I don't know anything about it except that it's similar to football. I guess you call it American football in Scotland, right?
That's right, Mr. Mason. I guess rugby and football have some similarities. Actually, football developed from rugby.
That's fascinating. I never knew that. Would you happen to know about the history of rugby? Could you tell us a bit about it?
I'll do my best. Rugby started in England sometime during the 1800s. It developed from the sport of soccer. People had been playing soccer throughout England for centuries. Then, one day, some students at the rugby school, that's one of the oldest public schools in England, some students decided to play a version of soccer in which they picked up the ball and carried it.
When did this happen?
No one knows for sure. According to legend, it happened in 1823. A student named William Webb Ellis picked up the ball and ran forward with it. Whatever the case, the new style became popular, so people all around the country began playing it. The first rules for the game of rugby were written down in 1845, and the game continued to evolve throughout the 1800s. I'm not boring you, am I? Shall I go on?
By all means, please continue. I find this fascinating, and I'm sure our listeners do too. Now answer the questions. Number 26. What is the boy explaining? Number 27. According to the boy, where did rugby start? Number 28. Why does the boy mention William Webb Ellis? Number 29. What will the boy probably do next? Questions 30 through 34. Listen to part of a discussion in a biology class.
In today's class, we're going to talk about plants. Now, there are 2 main types of plants. Can anyone tell me what they are? Greg, why don't you try?
Conifers and deciduous trees, right?
Those are 2 types of trees, Greg. But trees are only one type of plant. I'm talking about all plants in general. Does anyone else want to try? Hazel, your hand is up. What are the 2 main types of plants?
I believe they are vascular and non-vascular plants.
That's correct. Well done. First, I'm going to tell you about these plants in brief. Then, I'm going to show you some pictures to see if you can identify which kind of plant each one is. Okay, we'll start with vascular plants. Vascular plants have root systems and internal systems that allow them to move water and nutrients to different parts. Most vascular plants have roots, stems, branches, leaves, and flowers. They also typically have either flowers or nuts with seeds. Vascular plants come in a variety of sizes. They can be tiny flowers, and they can be enormous trees. As you've probably guessed, vascular plants make up the vast majority of plant species. As for non-vascular plants, well, they lack the internal transport systems that vascular plants have. Botanists classify non-vascular plants as bryophytes. That's a hard word to spell, but you can find it on the handout I gave at the end of yesterday's class. Yes, Greg?
I understand what vascular plants are, but what kinds of plants are non-vascular ones? I'm a little confused.
Let me see. Mosses are non-vascular plants. So are hornworts and liverworts. Don't worry if you don't know what those two plants are. I'm going to show you some pictures of them in a moment, all right? As for some other characteristics of non-vascular plants, they do not produce flowers or seeds. Instead, they reproduce through the use of spores. Non-vascular plants are often limited in size. As a rule, they don't grow higher than 20 centimeters. They're also found mainly in moist habitats. That enables all their parts to absorb water from their surroundings. Now let's get to those pictures.
Now answer the questions. Number 30. What is the main topic of the talk? Number 31. Why does the teacher talk about vascular plants? Number 32. According to the teacher, which plants are non-vascular ones? Number 33. How do non-vascular plants reproduce? Number 34. What will the teacher probably do next? Questions 35 through 38. Listen to a teacher talking in an art class.
Look at the screen, please. Check out these works of art. Here is the first one. Here is the second one. A third and a fourth. Nice, aren't they? Bill, can you tell me what they're called?
They're not murals, but, I think that the name for them begins with an M.
You're right on both counts. They're not murals, and the word does begin with an M. Can someone help Bill?
Wait, I've got it. They're mosaics.
Nice. I'm glad you remembered that. Mosaics are a very old type of art. They're my favorite type of art as well. As you can see from this picture up here, mosaics consist of many small pieces of material that are grouped together to form a picture. We call these small pieces tesserae. That's Tesserae. In case you're curious, the word comes from the Latin language. It's the term used by the ancient Romans who frequently made mosaics. Traditionally, a tessera, that's the singular form by the way, a tessera was made of glass or stone. However, in the past, people used seashells, ivory, gems, and various metals. Many modern mosaic artists use ceramics. A tessera can be made in any shape, but squares are the most common. This is how an artist makes a mosaic. First, the artist finds some kind of surface. It could be something small, such as a vase, or it could be a large surface, like a floor or wall. Then, the artist decides what the work of art will look like. After that, the artist glues the tesserae to make the picture. There are two main ways artists do the gluing. For small mosaics, the artist glues the tesserae to the object one at a time. For large mosaics, Most artists glue the tesserae to paper and then glue the paper to the large surface. That's enough about mosaics. Now let's make our own. I've prepared some paper, glue, and tesserae for you. Let's get to work and see what kinds of mosaics you can come up with.
Now answer the questions. Number 35. What can be inferred about the teacher? Number 36. Why does the teacher discuss tesserae? Number 37. What do many modern artists use to make mosaics? Number 38. According to the teacher, where do artists make mosaics? Questions 39 through 42. Listen to part of a discussion in a health class. In our area, most farmers harvest their crops from late summer to early fall. When the farmers do that, they suddenly have an enormous amount of food. So, can anyone tell me what one of their problems is?
They have to get all of that food to the market before it spoils. Otherwise, they won't make any money.
That's right. And how can they keep the food from spoiling?
They have to preserve it some way.
Such as...
My dad stores the grain we harvest in a couple of silos. The silos keep the moisture out, so the grain doesn't go bad. Other farmers dry their produce in the sun. That's what raisin farmers do.
Good, but you're all missing an obvious one.
I've got it. Refrigeration. Farmers use it for both the crops they grow and the animals they slaughter.
That's correct, Beth. Nowadays, we don't think much about food preservation. Well, farmers think about it a lot, but most regular people don't consider it at all. However, since ancient times, one of the biggest problems humans have faced has been how to preserve their food. This is especially true for meat. People tried many different refrigeration methods. No, that's not right. I mean preservation methods. People tried many different preservation methods throughout history. They dried food, they salted it, they buried it in the ground, they froze it in ice, they pickled it. Then fortunately, refrigeration was invented. Do any of you know when that happened?
It was during the 19th century.
Correct. The first refrigeration machines were built in the 1840s. Prior to the invention of refrigeration, people kept meat outdoors during winter. Others used big blocks of ice in ice boxes in their homes. But thanks to refrigeration, people could keep their food cool and preserved all year round in any climate. Refrigeration was an instant success. Railroad companies built refrigerated cars to transport frozen meat and other food. By the 1870s, refrigeration ships were sailing the oceans. In the early 20th century, refrigeration technology began to improve greatly. Home refrigeration machines became available to the wealthy. Then in 1927, General Electric started making the first mass-produced refrigerator in the United States. Now answer the questions. Number 39. What are the speakers mainly discussing? Number 40. What is probably true about the boy? Number 41. Why does the boy mention silos? Number 42. According to the teacher, when was refrigeration invented? Stop. This is the end of the listening section.